Welcome to the Quarantine Cafe. I'm your host, Rafael Moreno. Today's guest, an award-winning poet, actor, playwright, stage designer, filmmaker, producer, director, and even former stagehand, and above all, the son of a man whose life was dedicated to theater, Black theater in particular. Garland Thompson Jr. got his start in Hollywood at the tender age of 5 years old. Later on in New York City, he found himself working with the Public Theater, the Negro Ensemble Company, the New Federal Theater, Manhattan Theater Club, and even the Big Apple Circus. Garland is now the executive director of the Frank Silvera Writers Workshop here in New York City, an Obie and Audelco Award-winning theatrical institution founded by his father, Garland Lee Thompson Jr., actor-producer Morgan Freeman, and many others. With a nearly 5-decade history as a seminal institution of theater here in New York City, and still affectionately known as the Workshop by many, the Frank Silvera Writers Workshop became a home for thousands of inspiring writers, actors, directors of all creeds and colors. Garland Thompson Jr., welcome to the show. Such a pleasure to have you here.
Hi, Raphael. Thanks for having me.
Garland, your father was a force within the theater and film industry. Tell us about your father and his vision.
Well, my father, Garland Lee Thompson Sr., was an actor, a director, a playwright, producer. He spent his life in the theater, started off in Hollywood in the movie and film business in the late 1950s and into the 1960s, did television shows like Bewitched and Perry Mason, and also had roles on Star Trek, the original series. One episode of which he was in became one of the top 10 favorite episodes of all Star Trek original series lovers everywhere. He became interested in theater in the 1960s when he worked with a gentleman by the name of Frank Silvera. Frank Silvera was an actor, a director, and a producer himself. He had his own theater company. He was a Black man, a mixed man actually, from Jamaica, West Indies, and he had come to America, emigrated to America, and he got into Hollywood. He actually became a pretty decent force in the movies in Hollywood. He was major co-star with major stars of the time, and then later on transitioned into television. But in the meantime, while he was doing that commercial work, he started his own theater company, the Theater Being, to promote Black and brown artists to have a place to be able to come and do roles and shows and work and tell stories about what it was like to just be a Black person. It was just like to be a brown person in America, not a chauffeur, not a maid, not something like that, not a thief or a thug, but just real stories about real people. So my dad met him in the 60s in Los Angeles. They were both in Los Angeles at the same time. It's a small world if you're a Black artist in that world. So folks tended to know each other. So he got to know Frank, and he went to work for him in his theater company, became a stage manager, and Frank became a mentor. It's major, probably the greatest mentor he ever had. And Frank was all about new work. He was all about pushing new forms, new acting styles, and just giving Black and brown folks a chance to develop themselves, develop the craft and the work and the writing. So later on in the early 70s, Dad had moved to New York City to continue pursuing a career in theater. He had moved there to stage manage shows on Broadway. He was there, he found himself a playwright. He was a playwright also. He had begun in the late 1960s writing plays. He was a poet and a playwright, and he found himself as a Black man in America with no place to be able to, virtually no place, to be able to take his work, his play, and be able to have it worked on, to be able to workshop it, to be able to develop it into something that could possibly go on and have a great life, either anywhere on Broadway or wherever a story may be able to go. So he was very much, again, in New York, very much Black theater artists. There weren't that many of them in the grand scheme of things, so it was a smaller community, so folks tended to run in the same circles and house parties and meet each other and go to the same events and theaters and work for each other and work with each other. So in that kind of atmospheres where Dad met Morgan Freeman, met Billy Allen Henderson, and met Clayton Riley, who went on to become his co-founders of the Frank Silvera Writers Workshop. And it was born out of a need, a personal need on his part, but not just his part, but other colleagues of his, artists and friends, playwrights and others, Black and brown folks who faced a similar challenge of getting their work to some place where they could actually honestly be workshopped and developed and produced. So they took it upon themselves to kind of DIY it and created what they felt they needed, which was the Frank Silvera Writers Workshop. And so what they did was they instituted, there was a place where they would have every Monday night, which was the Actors' Day off. At that time, the Actors' Week, the working Actors' Week in New York City Theater was Tuesday through Sunday. They would be working every one of those days, doing shows on every one of those nights, plus matinees on Wednesdays and Saturdays and Sundays usually. So 8 shows a week, but Monday was their night off, their day off. So on that day, they scheduled new play readings, and the format was they would cast, they would pick a play, a new play that's never been produced before. It would then be cast. They would use professional actors and directors. They would cast it. They would have a rehearsal, and then they would do a public reading of it, a staged reading of it. Which was basically, and when I say stage, it really wasn't staged. Mostly it was just sit down with the script in hand, read the story so that we can hear it. Dad used to call it radio theater, because the idea was to hear the story first. If you don't have a story that's working first, if I can't close my eyes and see what you're talking about and envisioning, and you take me somewhere, be taken somewhere by you with the story, then that story is maybe not as strong as one might like to think it is. So so it's about developing it, because once you have that story, then you can build upon it, and then you've got something. So it's about the craft and being tight with the story and the writing.
So Garland, what's the importance of having a play reading, especially in the Black community?
It's important because it is a place where new work can be developed. It's a forum, rather. It's a forum, and it's a format whereupon one can listen to the story, one can hear the story that's being told, one can hear the words coming out of the characters' mouths, and then determine if that's what's going on with that story. Is it strong? Is it weak? Where is it strong? Where is it weak? Can it be developed? Is it a story that should be developed? Or is this a story that's just, it's not really that great a story to begin with, so let's move on and do something else. So it's a forum. It's a forum, and it's a space for learning, first and foremost.
So the Frank Silvera Writers Workshop has been around since when?
1973 was founded, and in 1975 it was fully incorporated as a 501c3 nonprofit foundation.
And it's still going strong today.
That's right. That's right. With your help, too, I might add. Folks don't know, but Raphael is our reading coordinator. So he's our man on the ground taking care of things, and does it quite well, I might add.
Thank you very much, sir. And it's a pleasure to be working with you. And what are the plans for the Frank Silvera Writers Workshop moving forward?
Well, now this is interesting because, now we find ourselves in this coronavirus time, this COVID-19 time. And, as you and I speak, we're currently still in technically lockdown, quarantine. So we're still in our shelter in place, stay at home orders, stay at home, no. So we're not doing any public readings. Our partners, our partners in the theater world, the Billie Holiday Theater, they've canceled all programming until further notice. We're all following all federal and state and local guidelines as far as getting together again. So this kind of put us in an interesting time, because we still had half of our season's worth of readings to do, as well as readings coming up starting in September. Now all of that is, well, first of all, this season is completely gone. There are no more public readings, so we couldn't do that anymore. The fall, we're still trying to figure out everybody else what's going to happen in fall. So the way I'm kind of looking at it is that now is a time, now that we're sort of been kicked off the treadmill, the hamster wheel for a moment, now's the time to really think about this. You need to take a moment to think about this because when I became the executive director, when I took it over upon my father's death in 2014. So the purpose then and the goal then was to revive it to a point where people understood and knew that it still existed, that it was still happening, it was still functioning, and that it was indeed still providing service to actual playwrights and with real plays. As my father's health deteriorated in that last year of his life, the workshop also had a similar kind of decline, if you will. It was still hosting readings up until about 4 or 5 months before he passed, uh, but it had been diminished in many ways. So my goal was to bring it back, get it up and running, get it on its legs, get it on its feet and running, and let people know it's there and we're actually doing readings. And so that's what we've done with the help of Dr. Indira Edwaru at who's executive director of the Billie Holiday Theater, one of our favorite people in the entire, all in unlimited amount of universes. She's one of our favorite people ever. With her help and the Billie Holiday Theater staff and our partnership with them, because the workshop is in residence at the Billie Holiday Theater in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, we've been able to achieve that goal. Now, the goal is going forward. What do we do now? Do we continue to do what has been done for the last nearly 50 years? Or do we take a look around and go, you know what, this is a brand new world, not just because of COVID-19, but just in general. We have new technology, we have new opportunities. Barriers that were in place 30 years ago, 40 years ago, are not necessarily quite as in place today. Things are different. So does the workshop continue to function and continue its mission, which is to develop writers, to develop new Black and brown writers, new women writers, new writers from other marginalized groups, people who traditionally have not had so many opportunities to get their work heard and seen and done. How do we do that in this new world? How do we do that? We know when we come back, that getting together is going to be an interesting situation. There are costs to that. There are expenses to that. How is that all? How is that all kind of flowing? And do we need to keep doing what we've been doing? I had a thought. Had a thought this week that in contemplating all of this, which is basically we we are not bound to serve the ghosts of the past. We must always honor them. We must never forget them, but we are not bound to serve them for all our days. We are bound to save the spirits of the present, we are bound to serve the spirits of the present and the future.
Well said. And I would have to agree with you. Like right about now, it's a great time for renovation and innovation.
Mm-hmm.
So we get to take advantage of that to rebuild ourselves.
Yeah.
And another question that I have for you, Garland, is I heard that you have a book coming out. Tell us about your book.
Yes, I do have a book coming out this year. It's a book poetry. I have actually the galley copy right here. I can show you. Can you see that? Yeah, there it is. It's called Garland with 18, New Book of Poems. It's a compilation of poems that I've written over the last 25 or 30 years since I started my spoken word career, and it's going to be my first officially published, like I didn't publish it myself, kind of book. It's going to be published by Old Hat Press, which I'm also thrilled. It's a fairly young press that was started by Christian Elder, who is who's a filmmaker and a writer and a poet in his own right. He's also the son of playwright Lonnie Elder III, who in the canon of Black theater artists is right up there with August Wilson. So, and was an incredible writer, incredibly also wrote for Hollywood and television as well as the theater. So, one of our great heroes. So, it's great that I'm able to work with his son to get my book out. So,
That's amazing. I can't wait for my autographed copy. How about that?
you're going to get it. You're definitely going to get it. Yeah.
So now, Garland, as a last word, what would you like to impart on our audience?
Stay grateful, stay humble. There are lots of people in this world that are having a really tough time right now. This virus, COVID-19, it is real. There are many people out there and forces out there that are trying to take advantage of the situation to benefit their various agendas in various ways and to take advantage of people. Please be aware that that's happening and don't fall for the okie doke. Don't go for it. Take care of yourself. Do what's best for yourself and your family first. You know, on an airplane, Raphael, they always tell you when they're going through the safety procedures before you take off, when you come in the oxygen mask, it's a case of problem, oxygen mask can drop down, right? They always tell you, put it on parents, put it on yourself first before you put it on your child. Because if you are not able to function, then you will not be able to help your child. So do what you have to for yourself. Take care of yourself. Have empathy. Have as much empathy as you can for your fellow human, even when they're acting ignorant. And, have a lot of love for yourself and for others as much as possible.
Beautiful. Garland Thompson Jr., thank you so much for blessing us with your presence and your words. So if you want to get in contact with Garland or pre-order his book, all of his information is going to be right down in the description. Garland, see you next time.
Thanks, Raphael. Take care.
Bye-bye.